are, we decided to allow the gentleman to dig. And he and two friends came in one day.
Clear.
And with our cooperation, we allowed him to dig in that corner just on the other side of the small oak tree. And that gentleman was Brian Zinn. And Brian Zinn, who found the Cleveland treasure, was the first guy who literally put a giant shovel in the ground.
Legally.
As I'm watching him. Oh my God.
All right, man, I'm just going to scoot
They're all digging it out. They're digging it out. They're digging it out. Unfortunately, we did not find anything that day except a pop bottle. But it was an old pop bottle, so it was a good day. So we had the old pop bottle. A lot of folks, they look at it and they go, wow, the green picket fence. It's behind a green picket fence. There's a green picket fence. It's behind bending branches. Well, you got Magnolia Avenue running this way, the bending branches, so it might be inside the park. Was it a place that could be easily accessible at night? You know, would he have come in and broken in at night? If he did jump the fence, would anybody have seen him? Well, there was no house there. There was no house over there. There's no house back over here, and the hotel had only recently expanded. So he could have pretty much done what he wanted. And what we didn't like a whole lot of folks to know was that on the north side of the property, on the other side of the parking lot, there was a bamboo thicket from the far east to the far west of the property, and it was all dirt lot. And there was a road, literally, that you could go in. It was for police, it was for fire, and it was for lazy people who worked here, of which I have to admit at the time I was in my teens, I was one of them, and we would come in that way because you didn't have to get out and do the combination on the gate and come in. So you had all this bamboo, which some people believed is tall grass, over the tall grass, but we also had bamboo over there, we had bamboo over there, we had bamboo out near the water, we had bamboo everywhere. So you got to kind of figure out what that's all about. There's a group called the Wiki. They believe that at one point, and you've probably all seen it on the internet, that something about the pine tree. Pine tree at the time is probably the tallest tree that we had in the park. It's about 100 something years old. It's hard pine, and it happens to line up really well with the planetarium, and it lines up with the old fountain that's out there. We've had a lot of probes that have gone in the ground from right about here all the way over to there. And after Brian Zinn got through digging, a couple of years later, a representative of Expedition Unknown and Josh Gates contacted us, and they wanted to dig, but the cool thing was they also wanted to ground penetrate radar. So they had the deep ground GPRs and they had the shallow GPRs, and in the span of about 4 hours, every square inch from about the back of the planetarium all the way forward on both sides, these trees and this, all of this was done. And again, one of the most promising places was that corner where Brian dug before. So a little bit further to the east, we started again. Again, you probably saw the episode, not quite so successful. The building in here, the planetarium, the show is almost exactly the same as it was in 1981. The only difference is the hurricane's a little shorter, and we don't use the lines of declination to set the sky back. We use the meridian, and we set it back to the way it would have appeared to Juan Ponce de Leon back in 1513. You're gonna, when the verse reads, "Near men with windrows," the little men in here, probably everybody's seen it. It's all part of an exhibit that was built by a guy named Frank McConnell. Dr. McConnell built this back in the 1970s. It was here in 1981, and it is exactly where it was, the way that it was in 1981. Same thing with the compass rose on the right-hand side. That exhibit is exactly as it was back in 1981. Again, the show was like it was in 81. Paint was different, the floor is different, all that's different, and so that really hasn't changed very much. There are other references that folks, base of a tall tree. There are a lot of tall trees here, so that's something that is left to your interpretation. We've had numerous trees fall, and I will tell you that some of the largest have been around this planetarium right there with whatever that thing is. Bird of Paradise, I don't know. It's a big floppy-eared thing. Anyway, that's real technical there. So there's a giant oak tree there. There's a giant oak tree over here. There's a giant oak tree over there. They've all come down. You can see that these are about to die. These are going to come down. And one of the biggest trees we had is there's a gentleman over here with a white shirt sitting next to a lady in a red sweater. On the other side, there was an enormous oak tree that seemed to touch the sky. And when it fell, the roots got exposed, enormous. It took out about 6 feet of that wall. And again, there's been speculation as to, well, you know, Byron would have put something next to a man-made structure because the ground would have been disturbed. He never would have put something in an unman-made structure. Again, that's to your interpretation. I don't know, but I can tell you those trees are gone. And on the globe on both sides, I should have said it while I was standing there on the fountain, but on each side of the globe, there was a cedar tree, bigger around than whoever the tallest person is here. If we were to hold hands, that's how big the base was. There and there, they both snapped during Hurricane Irma, and that was a bad thing. We lost 81 tons of trees in Hurricane Matthew. We lost about 30 something in Hurricane Irma. So they would have gone in here. My dad would have done the show. Would have seen all this kind of stuff. Maybe he's thinking. So where do we go now? So you have to use your imagination for this one because the trees took out a whole exhibit. Yep.
John?
Hi guys. Yeah.
I first got here.
Oh, yeah. I think I will. Just let me tell you one thing about the honking. There are a lot of theories about you can still hear the honking. Some people thought it was or think that it's the cars that came through and the horns are honking. Maybe so. I don't know. We did not have peacocks in the park back in 1981. We had ducks, a lot of ducks. We didn't have swans. They had already been killed by, believe it or not, wild dogs that roamed the marsh. Came in and took out all the swans. So when you see the old pictures of the swans, they weren't here. I have to tell you about the geese. My father, in '81, when we took this place back over, was working as a tennis professional north of town. In addition to being a tennis professional, he and a friend of his raised birds from eggs. So you had turkeys, you had quail, and you had geese. And he raised geese. So when he came here, there was no way he was going to leave his birds behind, just a little north of town. He brought them here. The goose pen was constructed on the west side of the planetarium, almost even with the dome. That's where the geese were. So I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't the cars or the trains or anything else. But you can still hear the honking. I'm just telling you that there was a goose pen over here. There were no geese over there. That if there was any honking going on with birds, it would have come right from over there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Some people, that's a big thing. Others, it's not so big. We're heading to the Indian burial ground now. That's what it was called back then. So this is where it would be.
And for our viewers, it's also fun to know that Byron Price wrote in one of his books wrote the ducks honk. So he thinks the ducks honk.
Oh, honk. Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, in one of his books, he describes an area and he says the ducks honking.
This is really cool. Okay, hang on a second. Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, just want to make sure we had a photograph before we got in there. Yes, you hear it in 1910. Oh, great.
Who did the narrations?
This is Cochran Keating. I did the ones for the planetarium and the globe, and I wouldn't have done it except that we lost the masters. The masters were thrown. They're all reel to reel. So when people started cleaning, they went, "What's that?" It's like if you saw an 8-track, right? If you saw an 8-track today, you'd go, "What's this here?" Looks like something would hold up a corner of a table. You know, rocket. Hey, the reason I'm stopping here is this was our second Native American burial ground. I don't believe that this has any relevance. I believe that the relevance in the illustration would have come from the original Native American burial ground, which was right next door. The reason I wanted to stop here is, first of all, it's too small to go inside all at once. But if you go inside, there's some black and white photographs. It'll be right on the right-hand side. And you will see what we did and what archaeologists did to protect the bones of the subjects that they were studying. Essentially, it was putting pouring a piece of concrete, pouring a concrete edge around it in case we got flooded and it started to roll out and the water rolled out like what happened in Hurricane Dora in 1964. It would have protected the bones in the position. Some people see what looks like a feather, an arrowhead, a knife, or the Native American burial. So they see that in the illustration, and some believe that is the Native American burial ground. So it's a representation of the burial ground. So if you'd like to, if you just cruise in there, pictures on the right-hand side, take a look, and kind of circle back out this way, and I'll see you right over where the old burial ground was. It's just a few feet right this way. So just take a look, and again, think about that.
All right, guys, these are the photos he's talking about. We have a lot of people here, so I'm just going to give you a quick scan. You can pause the video and take a look at them at any time later. We're going to share this.
So that one in particular, the top left one, looks like that shape.
These were the photos he wanted to make sure were here before we came in and he talked. All right, we'll head out and let everybody take a look. Thank you for saving my water bottle.
You're welcome. I almost forgot it. Just FYI.
That's okay, I clearly forgot it.
Well, that makes two of us.
Okay, the reason I stopped here is not so much for what was here. What was here was this. This was back in the 1930s, 1940s, when the Smithsonian was doing their digs. My grandfather decided to really protect them. And in doing this, it definitely protected them from the bad weather. But it couldn't protect them from hurricanes and vermin and all kinds of other things, termites. So ultimately that had to come down, and there was a concrete wall. And the concrete wall that was around it, it was kind of oval, and it was an oval, and then there was a circle at the end. Again, you can look at the illustration, and it might actually be there. I stopped here though to tell you what wasn't here, because what wasn't here is as important as what was. And this herein lies is a very this is the selfish part on my part, because I get a lot of questions from new diggers who have not really done the research. They want to ask the questions and get answers quickly, and I get that because I'm kind of the same way. But thank God for the internet, because you can get a lot of that information on the internet. So what wasn't here? First of all, what was here was a round building, and it's right here. This was destroyed 3 years ago during Hurricane Irma. It's gone. The burials are still down here. Everything's cool with the church. We're all good. But it's there, so that's it. What was not here was a Native American village. None of those huts was here. The recreation of the first Christian mission church, which was over here, was Franciscan mission. That was not here. There was a duck pond that was there, and the ducks were there, and there was an island in the center of the thing. And you can still, on eBay, you can see the maps that'll show that to you. There were no grounds exhibits. So when you see the black drink, wasn't here. So you see the wall with the Spanish bayonets, wasn't here. The coquina exhibit over there, it wasn't here. These rocks, this landscaping timbers, those landscaping timbers, they weren't here. The only thing that was here were the Tinahonies, the chains, the cannons, and I realize that's not a good plural, but cannons, we're gonna put it there. The Native American statue, Chief Ariba, almost exactly the way it is today. He's painted today. Back then he was, I don't know what he was. He was brown, but I don't know if that was paint or bronze or what it is. I really don't know. But, and then of course the big cannons, the picket fences were everywhere. All the picket fences were green. There were no white picket fences. There were no brown picket fences. We have a few brown ones today, and that was it. So they were there. There was no There was no picnic area over here. All of the exhibits that you see out in the field, none of them were there. So don't base any assumptions on the owl. Owl was carved 3 years ago. Don't base any assumptions on the blacksmith shop or the tower. Some folks recently have asked me about the tower. None of that stuff was there. We only had the obelisk at the end, which I'm not going to take you down there, but it's everybody knows what an obelisk looks like. And there was a compass rose around the obelisk. There was no dock that went out whatsoever. There was no, there's no bulkhead. So when you look at the illustration on the bottom right-hand side and you see the rock, there are those that believe that that rock is a representation of the in error state of Florida flag, which had a rock on it. Looks sort of like the Prudential thing. Okay, yes, it could be that, or it could be the rock at the end, which was a monument of St. John of the Pines, a fort that's there. Could be. The rock would have given a reflection from the water, because if you had come there by water, you would see the reflection of the rock of the St. John of the Pines monument. What you wouldn't have seen is a reflection of the palm tree, because the next closest large palm trees were right in there, just on the other side of these shorter palm trees. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at it. It may be the flag. It may not have anything to do with anything. It may be, maybe it's the monument there. Maybe that's where he's supposed to start. It's like first chapter written in water that you saw when you came in. And on the sign, that would have been there in 1981. But does that mean you start the puzzle as you drive through the gate? Or does that mean you would start the puzzle from coming across the ocean? And so the first chapter written in water would be the Spanish, the explorers coming in. So again, that's for you guys to decide, because again, there's a segment that really doesn't believe that it's here at the Fountain of Youth at all, and I can respect that. But a lot of things in the puzzle that you'll see that maybe was there. So anyway, that's it. What we're going to do now is, if it's okay with George, I don't know where George is, and maybe he's over setting everything up. So I thought what we do is we walk this way, and again, please look around, see the landmarks, take a look. We'll walk down that way. The gift shop would have been here. The pathways are a little bit different, but it would have been here. No pavilion, and again, no bathrooms. Bathrooms are only out front, so near men. If you believe that it's near the men's room, it would be out there. It wouldn't be in here. So we have that, and then we're going to go to the pavilion. And George has got everything set up for the podcast, and we can ask questions. I know you guys probably have some questions for Brian Zinn. I mean, he's like one of these guys who really found one of these things, and that's pretty cool. That's what we all hope. And I personally found out about this whole thing in 2004. The two ladies came down from Ohio and said, hey, there's this guy, and he wrote this book, and yada, yada, yada. And I looked at it and just kind of shook my head. I just couldn't understand it. And again, it took a while to warm up, but it was really great. And she's one of them, and Nadine Cox is in, and somewhere she's the other one. But we've had several meetings, and it's a great discussion, and it's a cool group that you guys have, And but anyway, let's walk on this way, and we'll go to the pavilion. Keep your questions. If you have the questions, keep them in mind, and then when we come over, we'll take a look. That hurricane took out large trees in here. Took out large trees back over here. A lot of landmark trees gone, if they were landmarks at all. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
How are you?
Two thumbs up. Better than one. All right. I'll let everybody catch up. I tend to speak fast, walk fast. I'm usually going to someplace. Just want to make sure if everybody can just make their way over this way. If anyone needs to use the restroom during the presentation, the restrooms are right here. So we'll just head on over to the...
Did you say the church was here prior?
It's not.
It
Matter of fact,
not.
there was a duck pond that was here.
The duck.
And the duck pond had been here for 70 years, about 70 years. And the middle that nut tree there, which is one of my early spots that I thought it was there. So I probed the heck out of the out of the pecan tree, and it's not there. My dad planted that tree when he was a boy.
Wow.
Back in the 1930s, early 40s. It's the only tree that he actually said had done it.
That's awesome that you have that history.
George, what's up, guys? Hey, how you doing? Fantastic.
All right.
John and Brian.
Perfect.
Can we send Destiny to grab that cast?
Destiny?
Yeah, my stepbrother.
Yeah.
Or do you want to go grab
No,
it?
that's okay. Right. You know where it's top right hand side. Hey, how about let me ask Derek.
Okay.
And what does it look like?
It's a cooler.
Okay, two. Okay. Hey,
Just
Derek.
sitting on that table.
So I'm going to go ahead and end this,
Or you can keep it going.
or keep it going. Do we have a tripod? Guys, you can sit in the front row. It's not reserved. What's up? Great turnout. So if you're watching this later, thank you everybody for coming out. We really, really appreciate it. Well, that's interesting. Somebody is logged into Brian Zinn's account watching. And there's Brian right there. That's funny.
Hey, as everybody funnels in, I just want to let everyone know that if anyone needs to use the restrooms are directly behind the building, in that building over there. We get written up a lot on TripAdvisor. We have really nice restrooms. So I hope that they're in good shape.
All right, guys. The video's getting a little shaky here. We're going to switch what we've got you on here.
Switch?
Huh?
You good?
Yeah. We're going to put a little tripod and...
Oh, okay, no problem. And then if anybody needs anything to drink, their drink machines are back.
It hates me when I try to remove the phone, so I'm just going to let you do it.
Thank you. It's the most difficult part is trying to cater it to an interest. You know.
And you did it without a microphone.
I'll pay for it tomorrow.
You're on the end, Brian and John, whichever one you guys want, whichever chair you want to steal.
Let's take this one.
Do you want to? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We want to film...
I'm serious. Oh no. Please.
You want to film us?
I've been here since
I figured they
'75.
watched it down the answer.
What am I gonna do? The guy's asking for me.
John.
Hey.
Oh,
All right, well, somehow we got turned around, so here we go.
It was good.
a little late.
Don't worry about it, man. It's all good.
I didn't actually know what time.
I think that will get you guys...
Oh, sorry
You
about
would
that.
just told me the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
There was a parade in Callahan,
And a parade here.
and plus US 1 they're repaving. So.
Yeah.
There's a worker that's going to get.
I'm glad you made it. Because the podcast itself hasn't started. I just gave a tour and kind of showed the folks the buildings and explained a few series and that sort of thing. So, anyway.
A few minutes afterwards, maybe.
But yeah, you are.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But
For a chat.
well, maybe. I mean, really, there are like 4 or 5 other people that
George,
have already
you're gonna
said
have to
the same
field the
thing,
questions,
and they
but
want
I
to take a
can't
chance. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm hoping that we'll talk about a number of things that'll answer a lot of questions. Thank you. That's cool. I want to put that here.
Well, you know what mine is.
Yep.
Basically, mainly, I couldn't tell you now. Mainly, I don't know. We talked about January.
Yep.
Yeah, because he'll want to talk about the mistake.
Okay. All right. Well,
You know, because that's a slow time. So.
yeah. If we could talk about that, then a little bit later on, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to talk to do that. Okay. All right.
I looked
Thanks,
at it
David.
on Facebook. The whole video is sideways. Did you know that? Yeah. See?
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Guys, we're going to end this and restart it here in just a second. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Look for a new link here in just a moment.